The funniest meme leading up to the release of Dhurandhar 2 for me personally was that upon reflection of the fiasco that happened with the marketing of the first film, Jio Studios and Aditya Dhar kept Ranveer Singh on house arrest, just to ensure that he doesn't end up saying or doing something out of pocket. At least they let Ranveer jam to the music launch one day prior to the release. The man was in his element jamming to Ari Ari, and the film has blasted in the scene commercially like no one's business, making me of course discuss with all of you several of its elements in chronological order. Let's do a deep dive and discuss Dhurandhar 2, and please do write down your thoughts as well, whether you agree or disagree with several of my points. I would love to know your thoughts as well in the comment section. I know when movies like this have relevant political and religious themes to the world we live in today, it generates extremely visceral and emotional reactions. With such movies also, the discussion goes beyond just film circles, and political commentators and meme channels start to do a deep dive on who I am, what I do, what I mean by what I say, which agency I represent, how many lakhs I have been paid to say what I say. Let's hope the comment section is an active discussion on the film's themes and not do a deep dive on my identity and intention. I only do this because I love the movies. Mind you, as the title suggests, the video will contain spoilers on Dhurandhar 2. From the first frame, no. Not of the movie, but the disclaimer Aditya Dhar tells us कि हमें अपने विवेक का इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए. Use your wisdom and intellect to draw your own conclusions, because yes, this movie is inspired by true events, but it is a fictional story. I think if this as an audience gets processed even before the film starts, a lot of the discourse about the film of extreme agreeable passion or just on the other side extreme disagreement can be slightly measured if you go with this frame of mind before part 2 even commences. I'll dive deep on the portrayal of Atif Ahmed a little later, a character clearly modeled around UP gangster and politician Atiq Ahmed, but I'm very clear on how my favorite part of Dhurandhar 2, my favorite action sequence, is the first 30 minutes of the film, where we first see the ability of Jaskirat Singh Rangi as a tactical soldier. This peek into Jaskirat's life, I believe, is way too rushed, for I genuinely believe it could have been the heart and soul of Dhurandhar 2 had it been given ample time to breathe. The sequence of Ranveer standing with his family as his father proudly wears his army uniform and they get a photograph together, the calm before the storm, is something I believe the audience would have loved to see. To see the tender moments he shares with his family, to see why Jaskirat wants to follow the family footsteps of his father and grandfather. This peaceful sense of apna pind, this emotional anchor of what he can call ghar existing side by side with the familial animosity of what is a land dispute, was something I believe needed more time. What I also believe is that the reason why Dhar starts with an absolute bang of him ambushing the house is that directors in commercial cinema want to lock you in immediately when you get comfortable in the theatre. The contrast is that either it can make you facepalm or roll your eyes like the opening sequence of Hrithik in War 2, or it can absolutely hook you like in Dhurandhar 2. I love Ranveer in this sequence so much, you just see the rage permeate with every blow. Ranveer in his filmography, often labelled as a chameleon, is not given enough credit as an action star, and the first sequence really just proves to me he can pull off anything. I may sound like a tape recorder about the muted profanity, but I find it hilarious that hey, smashing a skull until it turns into pulp with a hammer, good. Shoot a man so that the bullet pierces through his brain and turns into mush, good. But hey, we draw the line. Ranveer, when he gets to know about his sister's location again, proves why he is such a capable performer. Now imagine this same sequence on how it would have been even 10 times more heartbreaking had we got an insight into what a beautiful relationship he shared with his sisters. The situation itself is painful, but I think emotionally it would have been so much more gut-wrenching had we just spent more time with Jaskirat's family in the happier times. Also, I'm curious if you felt that the score that kicked in when Jaskirat sees his sister tied up, similar to the iconic Requiem for a Dream theme, an absolutely brilliant sequence that I believe would have benefited even more if we were patient and indulgent with Jaskirat's origin story. Ranveer as this lanky young 21-year-old looking at his mother suffering, getting teary-eyed outside the courthouse, giving his blessings to his sister to marry his mate, hit me hard. This is the core of Dhurandhar, a patriot's son who is scarred by the system not doing anything for his family. The ghastly act committed against his family deserved not just random flashes while his hearing is happening in the courtroom. It deserved time, a part of the tale that I believe was far more compelling than several montages of gang wars and killings in Liari that happen in the film ahead. Had we spent more time with Jaskirat here, I believe the parting words of his mother, the last words she says to him proudly, "Mera Fauji beta," would have so much more weight had we even got a glimpse of the feeling of being a Fauji ka beta in the household. One of the reasons I believe this movie should have been a trilogy versus a two-parter. More on that later. When Ranveer Singh gets caught in a crossfire only to be recruited for the purpose of Project Dhurandhar, we see a boy who has lost trust with the system. Ajay Sanyal brings him faith that his family will be monetarily protected and that his courage and ability requires direction. When the origin story sheds light on personal familial revenge, it highlights Jaskirat's ability as a soldier to kill everyone who wrongs those closest to him. But I believe his loyalty towards his nation through his idol, his father, should have been established early on. The show don't tell policy of filmmaking, I believe, would have worked wonders for the film in this regard. This is where I believe the training montage of Ranveer Singh should have commenced versus weirdly placing it as the end credits of the film. It would have been a brilliant way to highlight Jaskirat's physical ability, why he stands out amongst the crowd, and established why he is ideal for the mission at hand. This is where he is instructed that he will meet a coordinator who knows everything. He may never meet him, but he will take care of him. This is important for an ultimate reveal that I have a lot of thoughts on. Anyway, I believe the training montage should have been here versus the end credits. I would love to know what all of you think. Ranveer burns the memories of his life in Punjab, and now we are with him reflecting with Alam, played by Gaurav Gera, on his psychological frame of mind post the killing of Rahman Dakat. And upon reflecting on the entire film, I was kind of bummed out on how Dhar does not extend the idea of Hamza being tormented by Rahman's ghost. It makes me conclude that Hamza's disbelief in being haunted by Rahman's ghost staring at him all bloodied as he lights up a cigarette was less Shakespearean imagery and more just a cool shot that just did not feature later on. Seeing Hamza get startled by Rahman's ghost in part 2 would have been pretty cool. If nothing, we would have got the excuse to see Akshay Khanna again at least. I like how Alam tells him that he would tell him about where he comes from the day it matters. A great moment for how the payoff is so emotionally charged when the time arrives. The scene is enhanced even further with the single Kabhi Bekasi Ne Mara playing in the background, highlighting the nature of the work spies do, filled with loneliness and isolation. One of the reshoots that have recently happened post the success of Dhurandhar 1 is the interaction between Major Iqbal and SP Aslam, where we not only understand why Rahman may have been killed, but also the people in positions of power and how they can manipulate and kill those who dare to question orders or religious dogmatism. And I and many others believe that this scene has been added following the mob lynching of Deepu Chandra Das in Bangladesh, an extremely disturbing case of a Hindu being taken outside the factory he worked in. His body was dragged more than a kilometer through crowded streets to a busy highway, tied by the neck to a tree and set on fire before hundreds of onlookers, presumably because of blasphemy. An absolutely horrifying case of a Hindu being targeted and mercilessly killed because of a rumor. Rampal's commentary as the mob burns the body of an innocent man really brought me chills. This is the only glimpse where Arjun Rampal is genuinely horrifying. I'll tell you why he somewhat gets screwed in the writing process, not really having the final boss energy that this film required. One of the major portions of the meat of Dhurandhar 2 is to focus on the chaos that brews in Liari between the Pathans and the Baloch. And I genuinely believe that this became merely a collection of cool montage shots versus something that deeply invested the audience. The problem is twofold. The antagonist in the form of Arshad Pappu is barely introduced to the audience. He is a mere caricature of a villain. His influence is barely established, so the Liari gang war stakes don't even increase because the person you are fighting against barely feels like a villain to fear. And secondly, we have seen the ability of Jaskirat as a soldier through the introduction ambush sequence, and when you reduce the Liari gang war that he is leading to mere montages of slow motion walking, Pantene hair commercials with Marlboro advertisements, it seems like hollow stylized elements versus action choreography that engages you, which was the introduction scene of this movie. Jalado Liari, said by Hamza, should have some weight and transition to badass action scenes. We know that Ranveer is hot. Don't convince me with back-to-back shots of him lighting a cigarette with dynamite. I think a character who is extremely hard done by, primarily because of the final edit, is Uzair Baloch, played by Danish Pandor. A character consumed by rage, easily manipulated by Hamza, blasting on the scene with a brilliant sequence of killing Arshad Pappu in an open market, but easily trapped by Jamil and Hamza, sending him to the Dubai and putting him behind bars. It's great for the mission for Hamza as he keeps him as collateral till the very end, but it's quite funny on how much of a Pappu Uzair becomes in part 2. Maybe Dhar wanted to convey on how he lost track of the world post his brother's assassination, but Uzair to bada loser figure nikla part 2 mein. I must ask those who have been on the internet for a while though, there were rumors of websites like LiveLeak actually having the footage of Uzair's gang playing football with Arshad Pappu's head. Was this a rumor or did this actually happen? Have any of you actually seen the same? Because I swear the internet was a wild place more than a decade ago. More aura farming continues where Ranveer strips while doing his best impression of a Goldberg appearance and sitting on the throne. I love Ranveer, but the slow motion shots were insanely overused in this narrative. I'm sure it was a sight to behold for women, so I don't blame the director for indulging with the shoot of a topless Ranveer sitting on a throne. It is what it is. I find it amusing on how Dhar curtails legal trouble by not using real names. Zardari is Zarbari and now we have Nawaz Shafiq, obviously modelled around Nawaz Sharif. And I must say, if someone deserves a raise, it is Mukesh Chhabra for this casting choice alone, because I honestly have not seen an actor who is so much of a spitting image of a person who exists in real life. My man looked identical. Hamza urges Khanani to invest in his political party, changes sides upon knowing that the public will sway, and this is where the real change happens. Not only in the narrative of the film, but every operation just becomes seamless for Hamza. In 2014, the general elections in India happen and Narendra Modi gets elected as Prime Minister. Suvinder Vicky smirks at Iqbal, his son, mocking him that he said that his party will get elected in India. And look what happened. Now this is where the line between hey, it's a fictional story, hey, it's not a documentary gets tricky. When you put the real image of Narendra Modi as the newly elected Prime Minister and have a fictional character stating that the party that they funded did not get elected, you insinuate that the Congress gets funding from Pakistan. You go further to state NGOs, media, socialists, universities as investments made by the ISI to elect the other party. So what becomes set in stone for the filmmaker is that anything contrarian to the BJP being elected in 2014 was funded by Pakistan. Those who have lived through the era of the UPA will attest to the fact that not only was there a huge Modi wave, but a desperate want in the public to need change after years of scams that were exposed under the UPA government. The media, contrary to what the movie portrays, I remember every day did debates exposing the scams under the UPA, calling them out. Manmohan Singh was publicly ridiculed to be a mere pawn to the Congress. The narrative was always about how they have taken the public's trust for a toss. So while elements may exist where funding from Pakistan may be targeted against BJP that time, the scene of Suvinder Vicky labeling everyone, Congress, media, socialists, universities, all funded by Pakistan, as if the public discourse was only doing wah-wahiyat of Congress, is contrary to the truth. India and the public reached a breaking point with the UPA. This was publicly very clear, not because of Pakistan funding, but because we were fed up as citizens of this country. From a dramatic narrative POV, Suvinder Vicky roasting Iqbal does highlight the deep trauma that resides within him. His hatred for India becomes even more clear as he is a product of a psychopath like his father. But I believe these scenes of Iqbal essentially going through a humiliation ritual every time he steps inside his house made him come across as a loser than the intimidating villain we all saw in part 1. Even more so, why should I feel even a morsel of empathy for Major Iqbal? Rampal was haunting in part 1. The scene of him torturing an Indian spy is etched in my memory. But here, he's more of a disappointment, not the alpha image he portrays publicly, that makes you also conclude, oh, you're just a poser, as Suvinder Vicky genuinely spews every gali possible. In scenes, I felt like the father was like Raghu from the OG Roadies days, where as a humiliation ritual, he would roast contestants with BC and MC galis, just so that they can cut a good promo. All this works to the detriment of how the audience perceives him as a villain. Ranveer gets crowned as Sher-e Baloch, and the attempt by Dhar to recreate the crowning ceremony just like Akshay Khanna was celebrated with Flipperachi playing in the background just does not have the same zing here. When something is re-engineered, it just doesn't have the same magic. Danish in an interview had stated how Akshay jamming with the dancers was impromptu, and you can see the joy permeate on screen. Here, however, due to the editing pattern, music and rather flat execution, it just doesn't have the same impact. The celebration of the ruling party continues as a weak and shriveled up Daud states कि जब से चाय वाला हिंदुस्तान आया है हमारे लोगों में खौफ बढ़ गया है. And I must say, the anticipation and hype surrounding Bade Sahab and what he eventually was quite disappointing for me personally. I mean, imagine all of our conspiracy theories, KK Menon, Imran Hashmi, God knows what all for the ultimate boss, but I believe Dhar genuinely wanted to squash all the stylistic expectations and present him as a meek loser of sorts. The depiction of Daud for years has been this dapper Ray-Ban suit wearing Don, and I believe Dhar just wanted to crumble that image, and rightfully so. It reminds me of the comedic scene in An Action Hero, where the actor who plays Daud just squashes the perception of people and says, "Mooche maine kaat di, Ray-Ban pehnunga lagunga." Here, however, he is presented as this withering old man, and I just couldn't get it out of my head that he looked like Christopher from Ratchasan. I just could not take him seriously, and even in the context of the real world, I just couldn't believe that he would be calling the shots for the ISI right on top. His sequences of giving orders to the ISI and several gangsters just did not raise the stakes of the film for me. Maybe visually, because he just looked like a shriveled up joke. The UP elections are to be targeted, 60,000 crores of currency needs to reach India, and a drug deal needs to be made through which Russian and American ammunition can be purchased, and Hamza agrees and informs India of the same. This is where the film goes through an inconsistency issue in my opinion. Kandahar was criticized by Sanyal for the rushed nature in which the decision to free terrorists was taken. Parliament attacks are criticized by Sanyal for Project Dhurandhar is not greenlit sooner. Plates for currency printing are given by corrupt political parties to enemy states. Sanyal again criticizes the government, states that there will be a government one day that will take care of its citizens. Hamza screws up himself with his intel, relays wrong information to India, causing the 26/11 attacks while handing the guns to the terrorists who killed Indians. And this eats him from within. Every time there is a lapse in security or corrupt practices from Indian officials, Hamza or Sanyal have something to say or do. But the Uri attack, in which 19 Indian soldiers were killed by 4 terrorists from Pakistan, there is absolutely zero discussion of how this happened and what went wrong with Indian security, our intelligence agencies, that was otherwise promised to be so strong after 2014. No discussion, we just move on. It's this inconsistency of the strong stance otherwise taken but merely presented as a footnote later that makes the political leaning of the filmmaker work to the detriment of how the characters were versus how they are now. Knowing Sanyal or Hamza, they would have processed the news of the Uri attack with as much passion and criticism as they did the other attacks. The drug trade is to take place in Liari, its gangsters and the ISI are dealing with Punjabis who have Khalistan as their main motive, creating disruption in India through drug trade and making a population addicted to banned substances. This is where Jaskirat comes across Pinda. Pinda does not recognize him instantly, which gave me flashbacks to Rabne Bana Di Jodi. The guy can't be that oblivious. Thank God he was just waiting for the right opportunity to confront him. Uzair, poor invisible Uzair, is getting extradited to Pakistan, and we reach the interval where two best friends need some catching up to do. You realize with the interval block of both Dhurandhar Part 1 and Part 2 that this is not 2 3.5 hour films. This is one 7-hour plus film whose interval, if it was screened to theatres as one film, would actually happen with Rahman Dakait's death. So this decision to formulate the interval at this point of conflict between friends is merely a case that the audience deserves a pee break in my opinion. The scuffle between the friends leads to Pinda's death. I don't know how he was even standing, tripping on every drug under the sky. The music as these friends fight with each other just seemed misplaced in my opinion, with the rap of Destiny playing in the background. The best of course being how Alam takes the fall for Jaskirat. Gaurav Gera performs this scene beautifully, stating that a pickpocket from Bareilly finally has a purpose for the nation. Cutting his face with glass, I really felt not only was Gaurav great in the scene, but Ranveer putting on an act of being enraged that somebody would fight in his house was brilliant. A great point which I believe actually is peak detailing by Aditya Dhar is Hamza instructing his men ki dono ko jala do, keeping in mind the manner in which both men deserve to have their last rites be performed. I like the screenplay choice here of how they reveal why Hamza killed Alam. How the murder happens first, but the reveal of Alam taking the fall for him is revealed later. This, however, raises the red flags of SP Aslam and his right-hand man conversation that Yaleen, played by Sara Arjun, overhears. The confrontation scene of Sara Arjun is extremely well performed. You really do feel the betrayal she is processing, having been led on and having started a family with someone she does not even know. The point which most people forget is that Ranveer states here that his battle is not with the people of this country, but with terrorists. An emotional scene in which both actors excel. I feel it was a great touch to make Hamza also gulp down the tea he always hated in memory of of Alam, the same tea shop in which he spent so much time with him. The scene of SP Aslam getting killed in a car chase, however, with Tamma Tamma playing in the background, became another addition to sped up action set pieces where the musical choice did not just have the same zing like part 1. The meeting with Ajay Sanyal takes place in Dubai, where he informs Hamza of times changing in India, of things being so good that he is now given free rein to do whatever he wants. This is where demonetization is presented through the Operation Green Leaf in order to stop the consignment of 60,000 crores being sent to India. So the movie creates this notion that demonetization, one of the most criticized policies under the BJP government, was actually created for the sole purpose of stopping a consignment of 60,000 crores from entering India. The same policy when 99% of currency notes were returned to the RBI, the same policy where over 100 Indians died, the same policy after which in a few months counterfeit currency started circulating, the same policy in which the Indian media spoke about the notes having nanotechnology where the location of the tender could be located, is presented as a policy that stopped Pakistan from funding a huge terrorist activity in India. What I'm confused about is how is it that the intel was available for the Indian agents, but they couldn't stop the consignment physically, but deemed it fit that Indians' lives should be screwed in the process. If one is capable, why not just stop the physical consignment itself? The short-term impact of violence being curtailed is not being denied, but this becomes another case of the grey area the director chooses to follow. When you take a real-life policy severely criticized by all Indians as this exceptional policy decision for the sole purpose of stopping a terrorist activity consignment with 60,000 crores, those who are naive and consider movies to be their source of history lessons would actually believe it. The character of Atif Ahmed stating, हमारी चाय वाले ने घुस के मारा, यूपी गया हमारे हाथ से. It papers over the problems of the policy and presents it as something done for the greater good of the Indian people without any problems. This is where the most debated aspect of the film is being discussed, where it is clear that Atif Ahmed is modelled around gangster Atiq Ahmed, who was an MLA with the Samajwadi Party and had several cases filed against him, for which he was convicted as well. Why I say you should consider Dhurandhar not to be your source of history and see it as a parallel like Inglourious Bastards versus a documentary is because Atif Ahmed was infamously killed on live TV when he was being escorted for a medical checkup from jail in 2023, but the movie presents his murder to happen post-demonetization in 2016. The point, however, which is true regarding this infamous gangster, as IG Lalji Shukla said in an interview with News 18, an officer who was behind one of the arrests of the notorious figure, he said that films are often inspired by true events, but some of them are also fictional. It's true that Atiq had deep connections with the underworld and gangsters, but the film's portrayal of him wanting to overthrow the government in Uttar Pradesh with Pakistan's help seems a bit fictional. However, the ex-police officer did not deny that Atiq and Ashraf had access to foreign arms supplies and underworld links. The UP police's FIR filed against Atiq Ahmed states that he himself admitted to having links with the LET and the ISI in procuring arms. So the claims, while not aligning with demonetization like the film suggests, still stands true, just on another timeline. I visually love this movie, and I must say Ranveer Singh with the cape in the torrential rain appearing in Khanani's Go Down, seeing the sheer scale at which the currency was to be transferred, looking on at his target like the Cape Crusader was pretty damn cool. Now this again is where I feel the film goes through an exhaustive pattern of everything becoming just too easy for Jaskirat. The tactical approach of assessing the threats and knowing when to attack like in part 1 is replaced with Hamza just going on a killing spree through anonymous hitmen, and we see every name in his diary get killed one after the other in quick succession. We don't know these people, what they caused, it's merely presented through names and the terrorist organizations they are associated with through text on the screen. This is one of the main reasons why people prefer part 1 over part 2. Part 1 had such a laser focused approach on its target. Rahman Dakat played by Akshay Khanna. We lived and breathed with him. The villain was allowed to be in our subconscious, so much so that we end up being intimidated by his capabilities and hating him too. Here, however, Iqbal is replaced with stylized action set pieces of the Liari gang war, and his aura building is left far too late to become the final boss Hamza goes up against and is worthy of. What I did love in the montage of murders is that at least Ajay Sanyal's animosity towards the first terrorist he meets face to face comes full circle. I won't lie, I hooted and cheered as Hamza FaceTimed Sanyal as Zahur Mistri was laying bloody on the ground and was told to say Bharat Mata Ki Jai and deservedly killed. That was one of the best kills in the movie. This is where I completely forgot about Daud as Bade Sahab. The ultimate boss I honestly could not care less about because his frail existence just seemed like a joke to me. Again, going out of his way to praise the ruling party while watching TV as the Ram Mandir verdict passed. By the end of it, it seemed like Bade Sahab just became a fan of our Prime Minister versus becoming his ultimate rival. Every criminal watching TV and stating Chai wale ne band baja di hai apni was quite cringe and overdone. This is where it is also revealed that Hamza attempts to kill Daud, but his deteriorating state has a nurse intervene and he fails to execute the same. Iqbal's humiliation ritual with his father continues, but he has had enough and drowns him in his own tub, something that honestly produced no sense of dread or fear within me. I, in contrast, was actually shocked knowing Iqbal from part 1, how he didn't end up doing the same sooner. Yami Gautam has a cameo in this film and I feel like it doesn't really add anything to the narrative. I mean, I'm not shaming it. If products of nepotism can get their way in movies, why not this? Arjun tries his best honestly, but I think he is hard done by because of the writing of the film that treats him as an afterthought. This is where we reach the final revenge stage of setting up Hamza versus Iqbal, as several terrorists are being handed over guns in a religious establishment to attack India, and Hamza, through the help of Balochis, aims to stop them. You know what my assessment of Iqbal versus Hamza was? That the dumbest thing that a villain can say to his rival is "Tujhe itni aasani se nahi marne dunga." Iqbal could have easily finished Hamza, but this dialogue is always the death of not only the villain but basic logic of survival. The establishment is blown up, the brawl continues, Ranveer with his long mane looks absolutely insane, the sound design is completely inconsistent in this entire sequence, gunshots and dialogue seem to be out of sync to when they are actually being performed on screen, the sequence is stretched for far too long even though I felt Hamza killed him in a pretty badass manner. I believe this action sequence just stretched the running time versus making a tight and well choreographed action scene. Another clap-worthy and whistle-worthy scene was when Hamza does get captured and is being tortured. Sanyal requests the ISI chief to let his soldier go amicably, holding his video of selling nuclear secrets to the Israelis as effective blackmail, compelling them to leave Jaskirat, who of course brilliantly uses Uzair as collateral so that the ISI can save their reputation publicly. When Rasputin played in the background, I could not help but chuckle. I must say that while a lot of people criticize this movie to essentially be a mouthpiece of Achhe Din under the current government, I think it's less that and more adamant in the perfect portrayal of Ajay Sanyal as a flawless intelligence agent. Any failure is due to the incompetence of the government and each success is attributed to him. There is no in between. This is where the big twist comes. Jaskirat, bloody and wounded, is heading towards the location that Sanyal tips off as his pickup, and here we realize that the agent he was informed about before he even stepped inside Pakistan, who knows everything, who may never meet him also, is Jamil Jamali, played by Rakesh Bedi. He is one of my favorite characters in part 2, by the way. An Indian agent who was sent to Pakistan to infiltrate their politics 45 years ago? Now, if we were to assume that this dialogue was said in 2019 or 2020, 45 years ago would make people assume that he has been sent as an agent under the leadership of Indira Gandhi. What's crazy to me though is his line that he delivers to Jaskirat about the joy of death creeping in slowly for Daud being more satisfying than actually killing him in one go. So the Indian agent, while keeping the biggest threat of India alive, lets him carry out terrorist activities like 2611. An agent who knows that there is this one dreaded gangster who helped orchestrating such an attack on his home country still visits him in his lavish house and keeps him alive because the slow death is sweeter. Does this Indian agent's blood not boil in wanting to kill such a big threat to his own country, who even in his dying days is still vowing to kill Indians? I think that slow death is sweeter narrative is extremely dumb from an Indian agent perspective. Also, when you look back at it in retrospect, why would this Indian agent, Rakesh Bedi's character, while knowing Hamza's identity, antagonize him so much in part 1, when he is planning the murder of Rahman Dakat with Chaudhry Aslam, only for Hamza to hold the Liari task force as ransom and threaten Jamil to not go forward with his murder? Why create such a complicated ordeal in a relationship that was already known? How did Jamil have so much faith in Hamza eventually saving Rahman and then coming in his good books? It's too convoluted of a route to take while knowing that he is an ally. Are mere glances initially or throwing Yaline's phone, knowing that Jaskirat will pick it up and be successful in swaying her romantically, too open-ended? Wouldn't agents take more calculated risks? I can see how Rakesh Bedi was aiding Hamza in part 2 with pushing Uzair to be sent to jail or simply agreeing the switch of the political party. But if you see it in the 7-hour stretch as one unit, there are huge logical fallacies in Jamil's role as an Indian agent in Pakistan for 45 years. It's great for shock value, but does it really make sense across the board? I don't think so. I found the last scene of Jaskirat running away to go home to be the most poetic and impactful. Another reason why I believe this movie deserved to be a trilogy rather than the rushed two-parter it became. The heart of this movie is Jaskirat's love for his country and family, his connection with his land and home, and when he burns his memory of Yaleen and his child and walks towards his home with the beautiful song Phir Se sung by Arijit Singh playing in the background. Don't you ever say Arijit Singh saturation is a thing. My man is a special singer. That song is my favorite part of the album. This is why Jaskirat deals with his emotional dilemma. Should I remain one with the shadows, much like the unknown men who lay their lives for the country, or can I, for my own personal joy, reunite with my family, disrupting the very idea of what may have happened for over 15 years? Can I let them just exist with the memory of me, knowing that they got by okay? Or should I, for just me, crumble their idea of an entirely different life lived? I think Ranveer beautifully showcased this dichotomy through his eyes as he stood right next to his doorstep. A bittersweet but realistic portrayal of what is sacrificed for the greater good of the nation. These are the good, fleeting, beautiful moments of Dhurandhar 2 that we needed more of, versus the stylish montages and the swift assassination of everyone associated with terrorist organizations. This is why I believe a three-parter, with the first part eliminating Rahman Dakat, the second part simply focusing on Jaskirat's origin story and winning the Liari gang war, and part 3 where Iqbal and Bade Sahab need to be eliminated, would have been ideal, where the running time could have been easily distributed and one wouldn't need to speed run through so many conflicts and subplots. Ranveer is a generational talent who is deservedly catapulted to becoming a bona fide top 3 star in this country. Not only talent, star of this country, around whom massive projects will be mounted and for which he will invest everything as an actor. I know it. It's however undeniable that Dhurandhar Part 2 was good, but not as tight and engaging and exceptional like part 1. The inner fan in me who has rooted for this project even before its first announcement would wish that Dhar concludes the franchise of Dhurandhar and moves on to his ambitious project of the immortal Ashwathama after this. That high concept, big budget epic is something Dhar can not only pull off but absolutely hit it out of the park. It will provide something different to an audience who I believe would like to see him explore something beyond India and Pakistan. A true litmus test that will make Dhar reach the category of GOAT level directors, because everyone will exclaim, damn, this guy can do anything. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what are your spoiler-filled takes regarding the movie. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.